Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's Substack Live at the Sustainable Media Center. My name is Emma Lemke, and I serve as the Director of Gen Z Advocacy at SMC. And I'm so very lucky to be joined in conversation with none other than Steve, our Executive Director. So, Steve, thank you so much for jumping on with us today.
Absolutely.
So, for today's conversation, there's a lot that I want to discuss, but all the topics fall under this umbrella of, tech current events. And yes, there is a lot going on in our technological world and space right now, but with you, Steve, I really want to focus on two major pieces of news this week, mainly focusing first on the Elon Musk Sam Altman showdown in court, this Godzilla type figures going up against each other. And second, Meta's current legal troubles, specifically focusing on the second phase of New Mexico's trial and just all of the legal findings from that. So obviously, there's a lot to discuss. So let's dive right into the conversation. So, Steve, for those listeners out there who, like me a few days ago, had no idea what's happening with Sam Altman and Elon Musk in the showdown right now, can you kind of give us a little general summary on what the hell is happening?
So let's just kind of set the stage. This is a case that was filed by Musk
Hmm.
against OpenAI, saying that when he invested his $38 billion in, it was a not-for-profit, and that
Hmm.
they then swindled him and turned it into a for-profit. Um, Generally speaking, if you're gonna sue somebody or an organization, you first do the prep work to make sure, A, you've got the argument that you're gonna
Yeah.
win, and B, that you're not gonna embarrass yourself. What does Musk have going into this case? Well, he's got an endless supply of money.
Hmm.
So, presumably yes, it's kind of Godzilla versus Mothra, but it's not really. I mean, you know, at at the end of the day, Elon's got way more money than Sam and OpenAI do. And OpenAI have something to lose here, which is they don't want to be, but what's fascinating, and the reason why I think the case turns out to be really interesting is
Hmm.
because you know, most of the media attention that Musk gets is on platforms he owns, right?
Hmm.
So whether it was him, in the White House, going in and doging it up, or whether it was him on X, like he was in worlds that were reflecting his view of himself back to himself.
Yep.
Turns out in the courtroom, not so much.
How so?
Um, Getting a jury was almost impossible.
Hmm.
And I was listening to the Vergecast this morning and they were reading some of the jury questionnaires of
Hmm.
jurors that didn't get chosen, and they're horrible. I
Oh, yeah.
mean, I mean, I don't know how they got made public exactly, but I mean, people kind of generally think of Musk as a racist, sexist, homophobic, angry, mean son of a bitch.
Yep.
To the point where the judge had to say, look, we're going through with this trial, doing the
Hmm.
best we can to put together an objective jury,
Hmm.
but it's almost impossible.
Yep.
Well, that's not where you want to start.
No. No.
Um, and and then you would think that Elon would be prepped and would put on a coat and tie and would be charming and he would have handed out candy to the Jew. Turns out he kind of, and I'm saying this after having thought about whether to kind of frame it this way, but based on having heard five other people say it that were in the courtroom, he just came in as a dick.
Yeah.
Like and in fact, the Vergecast guys say, like, when you're in front of people that have power, the judge being one of them, being charming is part of the job.
100%. Yep.
He is not being charming.
Mm. Seems like a pattern with tech executives. Seems like a similar, not similar in the sense of Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg, obviously, in the Los Angeles trial, took on kind of more of a nonchalant, oh, I don't really know what's happening mentality. But I know in reading about Musk too, I read the same thing, which is he seemed like just a prick. He seemed out of touch with the fact that these jurors have all this power and that he's not in the position of power for once. And I also think that anyone who can logically put together, basic facts sees that even though, yes, there might have been mission drift from OpenAI, yes, they might have misled him. There is so much for him to gain having his AI platform and having SpaceX and having all these enormously large companies if he can kind of deconcentrate the power from OpenAI. And even though obviously he's also made bids to purchase OpenAI, which complicates matters further. So I think it's a very interesting exercise in understanding, the judicial system, and it's going to be really interesting what the outcome is.
I mean, all lawyers have bad clients, right? I
Yeah.
mean, all lawyers, go into court from time to time with a bad client who's got enormous resources, asking them to win things that they just know. He might be the worst client in the world.
Definitely not an easy one. Definitely not an easy one. But like you said, he's got these enormous amounts and piles of money, so he can continue to spend on not for I don't want to say frivolous cases because I think that they're again, I'm no legal expert, but from what I've read, like there is something to say about an argument that OpenAI has strayed from its original mission. Period. Full stop. However, it is contested by OpenAI. They say that Musk in like 2017 had agreed upon the terms of shifting to a for-profit entity to further its mission.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to ask smart people to explain to me how you raise the amount of money that they did for not for profit and then shift to for profit
Mhm.
without there just being massive tax consequences.
Yeah.
I can't get a straight answer out of anybody. I
Mm.
mean, it would seem to me that all that money would be taxable.
Yeah. And so what I'm gonna steer the conversation back to this idea of like the mission drift. So obviously at the heart of the trial is this question of mission drift, and what we mean by that is obviously did OpenAI drift from its original intent as a nonprofit into a for-profit in a nefarious way? So what does this case reveal about whether doing good and scaling fast can actually coexist in AI?
Well, all the initial conversation was about the benefit of humanity. And there was this strange, it's either us or the Chinese, where it's an arms race. If we don't win and build AGI, which is really the end game here, right? Is we make AI so smart that it basically starts thinking and acting like a human. And in fact, there's a sidebar case between OpenAI and Microsoft that
Yeah.
had a trigger of AGI being when their deal was going to come to an end, and they've given up on that. Um, but I mean, I think the thing we don't know the answer to, and it might be worth just putting it out there, is like, so was the good of humanity mission just always bullshit?
Always bullshit, yeah. It begs the question. And I think it's hard to logically reason with these larger than life big tech characters who, like, even thinking about like Zuckerberg. I think back to social media and I think back to when people said, Facebook was created as this entity that was going to be for the good of humanity. It was going to connect people, it was going to allow them to express themselves. Again, like you have to ask the question though, did Zuckerberg always kind of have this larger than life intention to take it beyond just its original intent? I think that it's hard to say in both cases of the original intent of the founders, but in this case, it is a little more suspect when you do have this shift to a for-profit entity in 2017, and then you have this suit that's being brought by Musk.
You just have to ask yourself, how much of Musk's behavior on a daily basis is logical and strategic, and how much of it is emotional?
Mm, mm,
Um, like, I mean, look, there's no doubt he got screwed. there's no doubt the money that he put into the original entity shifted under his feet, whether he signed off on it or not. And there's going to be discovery that's going to answer that, right? I
Yep.
mean, it's not going to be he said, she said. There's either going to be a document with papers he signed or there isn't.
Yep.
And much like the other cases we're following, discovery turns out to be super
Enormous.
exciting,
Yep.
right? Because all those emails and all those text messages can't unring that bell.
Hmm.
Um, I'm talking about in particular, the Los Angeles social media case that is basically, in which the families won uh,
Yep.
against Zuckerberg. Um, and I think one of the things you're seeing is that the nature of entrepreneurs in these companies requires a level of hubris so that you can say, see that brick wall up ahead? I'm going to run at it so fast that I will literally knock it down. And, I'm just about finished with reading the David Pogue Apple book. And I mean, there is no doubt that Steve Jobs fits in that category, and said to people, make me this vision that I have a couple time and time again, by the way, um, that had never been done before, and then pushed people incredibly hard until they did the impossible. And, in the case of Musk, I think the problem is after you do that a couple of times, you start to believe your own bullshit.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and but what does he have to win here? Like what's the home run? I don't get it.
Mm.
He gets 38, he gets some money back. Is it pride?
I was going to say, I think it might be an issue of pride. Because imagine from his perspective and vantage point, if you were a part of this organization or now OpenAI that has grown to enormous wealth, and you were a part of its founding, but its founding was predicated on this idea that it was going to be this nonprofit entity for the betterment of society. And then that shifted. Again, I completely agree with you through discovery and through other avenues and through the courts. Like we will determine pretty, not quickly or succinctly, but we'll be able to see if there was sign off. But I can see how you can feel wronged in that scenario, especially with its egregious wealth that it's accumulating or egregious evaluation, especially if it's to go public soon. That's a huge loss on his part, especially as someone who's filled with pride, and we know him as this larger than life character. It seems only right and seems very in character for him to do something like this.
You know, Not related to this conversation, but in the larger than life category, I read the other day that GameStop, which I
Mm,
just assumed was out of business because who the hell is buying cartridges for video games anymore? But it turns out it's not out of business. And the plan of the current CEO is to buy eBay,
huh.
right? Like, well, that, of course, that makes perfect sense because the people who are running GameStop into the ground should definitely be running used. I don't even know what I got a computer charger on eBay the other day. So that's my $12 that I sent to some stranger.
Hmm.
Um, let's talk for a minute about New Mexico. Um, so two big court cases, social media, both of them, um, the were winning cases, which the social media platforms lost. Little covered in the mainstream media is that New Mexico has another whole round in the case, which
Yep.
is basically how much money is going to be, divvied up. And the damages, were reported as inconsequential, but there's now some rumblings that they might actually be large.
Yeah, so I think it's important to separate out, what happened in New Mexico. So obviously there's the first part of the trial. This jury found that Meta violated the state's consumer protection law by misrepresenting the safety of Facebook and Instagram for young users. The jury then they order a Meta to pay $375 million in damages, which again, to anyone else, enormous amount of money, but to Meta it is not inconsequential, but it's It's just, a cut. Um, Second part is whether the ultimate question becomes whether Meta's platforms have created, in quotes, a public nuisance under New Mexico law. So then what that means is that finding would allow the judge to order a wide-ranging remedies aimed at curbing alleged harms to young people. So to your point, Steve, I was reading, about this on Wednesday. Meta raised its annual capital spending forecast, in which it will plow billions of dollars more into AI infrastructure. And what they said is we continue to see scrutiny on youth-related issues and have additional trials scheduled for the year in the US, which may ultimately result in material loss. They also said that regulatory backlash in the EU and US could significantly impact our business and financial results. So they are starting to actually see youth advocate, not just youth advocacy efforts, but these efforts to protect young people as a financially consequential pathway that might be taken via advocates and victims.
Now, having said that, some of that, in the public markets, they always have to write these cautionary notes.
Hmm.
I did see somewhere that there was reporting that for the very first time, active daily users were down, um,
Interesting.
which, would be, the beginning of people wandering away to, I guess, theoretically TikTok. Um, I mean, they're not getting off of social media. There's no evidence of that.
Hmm.
Um, one of the things that makes this moment exciting and complicated is you're beginning to see in all of these trials the public point of view begin to be part of the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So Elon manufacturing himself as a hero on X starts to
Hmm.
get replaced by what he's going to be like in the court of public opinion, where
100%.
just getting a jury to, I mean, all of his behavior, all the things he's done in Washington, all the people he fired, all of his statements. How many wives does he have now?
Many.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
all of that behavior starts to add up to be like, you know what? We may have had enough.
Yeah.
You know, every time I still do use Uber, and every time a Tesla pulls up, I feel uncomfortable.
Hmm.
I mean, because other than the weird fucked up handles, which I can never figure out how to open the doors, um, I mean, they're lovely, comfortable cars, and I'd like to think electric cars replace gas cars. But his whether it's trip to Mars or Tesla, his change the world for the better with invention is now, I think, forever clouded.
I was going to say
Um,
it feels muddied by a lot of his other actions. And I think the narrative that he's spinning feels like it feels archaic. Like this idea in the trial that he's like this great hero who's going to come back and who's going to restore this company to its former vision of being, a company that will serve humanity. That just feels like it can't be possible for Musk to say that after the events that have occurred over the past 5 or 10 years. So I agree with you. It feels like offbeat. It feels, out of character. And I think it's we're just gonna have to see what documents come up and what we find in discovery, to be able to then determine or sway the jury in one direction or the other. Because again, a lot of people are painting this out. Specifically, we're talking about the Musk case. A lot of people are painting it out to be this like Godzilla versus King Kong moment. But I agree with you. I think we have to be really realistic about the players on the game, the players in the game, and Musk is just this larger than life person. So I think it's gonna be really interesting to play out, but I think it's going to be interesting in the jury of the public to see what is really happening.
now, worth saying, Sam Altman has not yet gotten on the stand yet.
Yeah.
That's next week. And I listened to an hour interview that Sam did with Nick Thompson from The Atlantic. I'm not sure Sam's going to be a very good witness.
Hmm.
I mean, he seems, I'm going to use a word that I don't mean, but I can't come up with a better one. Lackadaisical.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, well, yeah, it might have bad outcomes. Like, don't, like, not CEO voice,
Hmm.
not
Yeah.
like, we're doing great. We're going to change the world. We're going to, cure cancer. More like, we might cure cancer, but we might also end humanity. And I thought he was done being that lackadaisical. So, um, So Elon's attorneys will definitely sharpen their knives and have their way with him.
And we will make sure to cover that and the continuation of New Mexico and the continuation of the Musk trial.
And our event. So we have an event on Tuesday, May 19th. Emma and I will be on stage in New York at World Press Freedom Day. It's a convening and it's talking about the future of truth. And we will be at Scandinavia House. Uh, uh, Tickets are free, and there's a yummy gathering afterwards. You can come if you haven't met us in person. We'll both be there, and Doug Hetzke will be interviewing us, and we will put the link to the RSVP, I guess, on screen. Here it is. There it is. I just put it right here, and also in the show notes. But please RSVP and come. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for jumping on, Steve. Please attend the event if you're in New York or near in the area, or please tell anyone that you know who is in the area. Again, it's a wonderful opportunity to engage with S&C and the mission. And we are so excited to be in conversation again with you next week. So thank you all for tuning in.